Hello, and welcome to the Hey Boomer Show. My name is Wendy Green, and I am your host for Hey Boomer. And Hey Boomer is for those of us who believe that we are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. With Hey Boomer, I'm on a mission to support adults in this next act of life to confront endings and transitions, to find new beginnings, and to evolve into who they want to be. Today is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and today we are going to talk about resilience and positivity. So with that in mind, I wanted to share the end of Dr. King's I Have a Speech with you. I wanted to share the end of Dr. King's I Have a Dream with you. And please forgive me, I do not have that beautiful oratory voice of Dr. King, but I will do my best. So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the character of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day, right down in Alabama, little Black boys and Black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley will be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain. The crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is our faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out the mountain of despair, a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that one day we will be free. And we still have work to do. This is a speech of hope, and hope gives us faith and momentum to keep moving forward. Is hope the same as positivity? I'm not sure. That's a question I will ask my guest, Dr. Joe Casciani, about. Dr. Joe has a 40-year history as a psychologist and manager of mental health practices, specializing in the care of older adults. He combines his expertise with his insights on managing obstacles and emotional barriers, and he has a unique problem-solving formula for aging well while living longer. Dr. Joe's podcast, Living to 100 has been going strong for 2+ years now with weekly episodes. I was a guest on his show a few weeks ago. He started the Living to 100 Club, which is a virtual community for the over 55 crowd. The content and events are curated to provide a trustworthy source of information and support for anyone looking to make the most of their decades to come. That sounds like us, doesn't it? I also want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Rhodes Scholar, for their support of the work that Hey Boomer is doing. Rhodes Scholar is the not-for-profit leader in educational travel for boomers and beyond, offering expert-led adventures to all 50 states and more than 100 countries. I love traveling and learning with Rhodes Scholar, and in fact, I'm hosting a trip, as some of you know, to Costa Rica, June 2nd through the 10th, with Rhodes Scholar. And I would love to have you join us. This is a small, intimate group of people. There will be no more than 18 people on this trip. If you are interested in finding out more about the trip to Costa Rica, drop me an email, wendy@heyboomer.biz. And if you're interested in finding out more about the other trips that Rhodes Scholar offers, please go to their website. We like to support our sponsor, Road, ROAD scholar.org/heyboomer. So with that, the announcements are over. We want to talk to Dr. Joe about positivity and resilience. Hello, welcome to Hey Boomer.
Oh, hi, good morning. Good morning, Wendy.
Thank
Thanks for that very nice introduction. And really, I appreciate the opening presentation you gave of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And that's always good to hear, always inspiring words for everyone.
Yes, very inspiring. It was lots of progress, but lots to do still. So let me start with the question that I posed in the intro. Is positivity the same as hope? And how important are both of those to our mental health as we age?
Yeah, I think they're similar. I don't think they're the same. I think positivity is kind of a choice that we make to view the positives of a given situation, an event, or whatever happens to us. There are positive and negative interpretations. So some people look at, the glass is half empty, and others look at it as half full. Yeah, I think it's the same notion. How do we choose to define what happens in our lives, and can we see some of the positives in it? Hope, of course, is staying optimistic, looking for good things to happen, and kind of reaching forward that we're going to kind of find something that we're desiring, that hope for ourselves or for others or for our friends, relatives, others around the world. That hope that's more of a kind of a something that we're climbing toward. So I've never been asked that question before. The other interesting thing I can talk about is positivity. I remember when I was working in nursing homes, a lot of patients, of course, really struggling with a lot of serious medical conditions. When you ask them about their feelings, and they would stay kind of positive, and you suspected there might be some underlying feelings of depression or feeling discouraged about things, but it was kind of a denial of their negative state. And I remember coming home one night and I asked my wife, I wonder what the difference is between denial and positivity. And she said, maybe there's no difference. Maybe it is the same. Maybe our desire to push down all those unpleasant feelings is the same as uplifting the positive feelings. So just a little add-on to your question.
I don't know. That's an interesting thought. Yeah. I've always thought that, we need to acknowledge those negative feelings and then be able to turn them around.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
So how in the work that you've done in the nursing homes and the senior communities, how important is a positive outlook on well-being?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I would see patients coming into the facility maybe after a stroke or, maybe after a fall or a hip fracture. And that attitude really colored how well they fared in their rehabilitation. And I'm not talking about kind of long-term chronic disease like emphysema or, heart disease, although the attitude comes into that too. But I'm talking about more of the acute events. And the attitude of I'm done with this. I can't handle any more of these setbacks. I'm throwing my hands up. That's going to influence how well they proceed and succeed in their rehabilitation. And I saw it time and again. And I remember seeing many people kind of really fighting, really digging deep to stay in their physical therapy and determined, just that attitude. I have to really push myself, but I'm going to look for success. I'm going to look for improvement. And that made such a difference. And, it's huge. I think it affects everyone, not just people in nursing home, of course, but our attitude about any event that comes along. Our attitude is going to really influence and shape and color how well we cope with it, how well we deal with it. So that's why I like to talk about, is the room half full or half empty? And there's an exercise that I love to do with a large group. And I'll split the room into two halves. On the right half, I say, all right, I want you to put your optimism hat on, and I want you to look around the room and find everything that's nice about the room. Maybe the plants, the fixtures, the sunlight coming in. You're the optimist, so look for everything. And then I shift to the other side of the room and I say, all right, you're the pessimist. Put your pessimist hat on and find everything that's wrong. Maybe the stains on the carpet or scrapes or scratches on the walls or furniture broken. And then I reconvene after a minute and I ask for feedback. And, people point out what they've observed. And I remind them, look, it's the same room.
That's right. Yeah.
What are you looking for? If you're looking for what's good about the room, you'll find it. If you're looking for what's not so good about the room, you'll find that too. And there was one evening that I did it, and a woman said, when I asked for feedback, she said, "Oh, you're here tonight." And I thought, well, that's a nice comment. And then I realized she was kind of in the middle of the room, and I wasn't sure she was.
Is she on the positive or the negative side?
Yeah, which side? Which hat was she wearing? Yeah, so it is. What are we looking for? And we're going to find it. Whatever we're looking.
Yeah. So it's a choice. That's what you were saying. It's a choice. And you made a comment about pushing through in your rehab, pushing through when you're sick. I have to ask you this because many of the people on the show know that my mother had been sick and she's doing better. But is there a place also for feeling accepting, like it's not going as fast as you want? And, maybe the pushing is frustrating you rather than helping you feel resilient and positive.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's an important point. I mean, sometimes we do need to step back and take some breaths and recognize, okay, I can't stay at this 110% every day. It's okay to kind of sit back and regroup. And I think that's where our initiative comes into play and our desires. And it is okay to kind of say, okay, I need to stop, walking so far. I need to stop, pushing myself with whatever is going on. So that's not to say it doesn't return. That's the good thing about it. When I talk about pushing ourselves, we have to recognize maybe a loss, maybe a personal loss.
Right.
And we can't just say, okay, my spouse passed away after 40 years of marriage. I'm going to get on. No, we do have to stop and go through that and grieve and, really process the loss, the emotional loss, because if we don't process it, it's going to be hard to keep moving forward when we're ready to get back up. And that's the notion of resilience. Resilience only works when we let go of all of that negativity and that heavy baggage that we're carrying. Yeah, we get knocked down. Maybe we, do grieve, maybe 6 months or even a year, but then we look to take the next steps and get back up off the mat. Yeah.
So
So
again, that's a
I'm sorry about your mother. I understand that um, it's okay for just taking some time off. Yeah.
right, right. I mean, like I said, she's doing better, but she's
Mhm.
frustrated. She wants
Mhm.
to be back to where she was. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Yeah.
So resilience and positivity, it sounds like, are both action words. Um, and positivity is a choice. Is resilience a choice, or is that something that we have to learn?
Yeah. There's a lot of research done on this, and the question is it something that can be learned or is it just innate? Some people are just naturally resilient. I think there are certain personality styles that lend themselves to being more resilient. People that can stay calm in a stressful situation, people that can use their history, experience, and draw on that, decisions made in the past and how to handle something new. The clarity and the emotion, I'm not, you know, bad mouthing emotion, but emotion gets in the way. And the resilient person can say, okay, I've got to put that anger on the side, or I've got to put that sense of frustration or sadness on the side and continue to deal with my problem. So I think it's some people are just better at being more resilient, but it's also, I think, teachable. I think it's something that people can learn because we always have some skills inside of us that are untapped. That's how I see it anyway. So it's like, all right, let's stay calm in this, disastrous situation. Let's try to think clearly, and that can be learned. I think that can be learned, but it's certainly really important with our senior years because there's always these bumps and potholes that come along, and that's what I talk about. It's not a smooth road, and if we throw our hands up and say we're finished with these challenges, then we're giving up on some great opportunities down the road.
Yeah. So things like change, even when you are a resilient person, I think
Mm.
change for whatever reason becomes more difficult as
Yeah,
we age.
yeah.
Um, and I'm wondering how you counsel people to help them develop that skill of resilience.
Hmm. Well, I talk about aging is all about adapting. It's adapting to change, and some things are under our control, but a whole lot of things are not under our control. So let's be ready to kind of tell the difference between what I can control and what I can't control. I can control my diet. I can control my attitudes. I can control, how I interact with people. I can control my, fitness activity. I cannot control the weather. I can't control gas prices. I can't control foreign policy. So we have to understand, okay, some things we're going to have to kind of discern what's under our control and what's not under our control. The other thing I think is really important is that change is good. We talk about comfort zones, and comfort zones are, those cozy, familiar, safe, secure places. Maybe, the restaurants that we go to, or the style of clothing that we wear, or the friends that we hang out with. Those are predictable and familiar. But there's a lot to be said for stepping out of that comfort zone. There's a great book written by Joe Dispenza, Dispenza, I think. He wrote a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And
Oh, interesting
yeah,
title.
and this is what he talks about. And it's all about, okay, we're accustomed to certain paths down, through our life journey. But when you step out of that pathway and you open new doors, that's where the great opportunity, that's where the excitement that comes in. That's where, we can see kind of a whole new world. And it's like, well, maybe I should change my clothing style, or maybe I should form a new group of friends, or, go to different restaurants or take a vacation in a different place. So it's stepping out of that familiar, predictable, cozy place, and it's a little bit anxiety arousing, and we don't like to, go into anxious, arousing places. But it's okay because we can, once that, once we experience that kind of excitement and opportunity, we learn that safe is nice, but it's not necessary. Let's step up and let's deal with some of the changes that I thought maybe I couldn't handle. But we've got a lot more spunk inside of us than we think we do. So step out of those comfort zones. I love to share stories about that for people.
It's interesting as you were talking about that. I was thinking about stepping out of comfort zones. And my daughter, when she was very, very little, like preschool little, she used to be very anxious about going to preschool every day, big meltdown. And the teacher finally said, why don't you just kind of play through in her mind what to expect?
Hmm.
And I'm wondering if, as we get older and say we're going to try go on a hike or we're going to go to a new place that we haven't been, if we try to kind of play it through in our head to take some of the fear away, if that might make it a little more comfortable.
Yeah, I think so. I think it kind of visualizing what it's going to be like, and sometimes that might make people more anxious. But I think if we kind of visualize it, how are we going to respond when something happens or a certain person approaches? Athletes use that all the time, and downhill skiers use that visualization to kind of anticipate how they're going to be, and they kind of run through it in their minds the whole downhill, and they know what how to handle the turns and the whatever is coming along. So it's that visualization that gives us that experience. I mean, golfers do that all the time, all kinds of athletes. So I think it's certainly a good experience for the parent who's reassuring the child about what to expect in school. Let's imagine what's going to happen and how are you going to deal with that when that happens. So it
Right.
gives them a little practice. Yeah.
Right. And I think it could be a good strategy for dealing with a change or something that might be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I wanted to run this by you. My word for the year, I always come up with a word for the year. My word for the year is connect.
Mm.
So I'm wondering, in your experience, what role connection has in resilience and positivity as we age?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a big word. That's a great word. It's, to me, aging is all about staying engaged and connected, and especially post retirement years when things can kind of shrink if we're not in that usual work environment around contacts and coworkers. So post retirement, it's easy to have our world kind of shrink, and I don't think that's good. Of course, I I always encourage people to stay connected and stay engaged. There's a great book written by Twyla Tharp. She's a choreographer, and she's
Mhm.
written dance, and she's written for Broadway plays and movies, and she's still working in her late 80s. And her latest book is called Keep It Moving. Of
Ah,
course, that's the
ah,
title.
right.
So, and for her, successful aging is all about engagement, is staying engaged. She calls it nonstop engagement. She says, try to fill up that space as much as possible, whatever is going on. So that connection, and that's hard for people sometimes because
Yeah.
it might be new. It might be something that I'm a little bit uneasy with. I tend to stay by myself, or I'm content. Solo aging is such a big,
That's a big, yeah.
phenomenon here,
Hmm.
and people are a little bit reticent to strike up those new connections. But I think that's so important. That's one of the keys to me of successful aging. That ability to make that phone call to a cousin that you haven't talked to, or maybe meet a neighbor for breakfast, or knock on someone's door and say, would you like to go out for coffee? It's that taking the initiative And
Ah,
yeah,
I
it's
like
hard.
that.
It's not natural. I mean, it's not comfortable for a lot of people, but we want to stay connected, and um, it's that connection that's social. We learn a lot about centenarians from the blue zones. I just take a minute to. Most of your listeners and audience is aware of the blue zones, but these are places around the world where the greatest numbers of centenarians live. So what do they find in all these five blue zones? That social engagement is common to all these countries, and that means staying involved with their social network, their friends, that may be volunteering, participating in church or whatever's going on. So it's that connection that is one of the key lifestyle factors for life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. And we talk about that a lot here on
yeah,
Hey Boomer.
yeah.
So this Living to 100 Club, what inspired you to do that, and what kind of resources do you provide there?
hmm Yeah, well, you mentioned my background with long-term care, and I sold my businesses about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and I knew I wanted to stay involved with aging. That's been in my whole career, but I wanted to do something that was fun. And I was looking at different website addresses, URLs, and they have these top-level domains like county and realty and pizza and clubs. So I said, oh, a club. So I found Living to 100 Club. I captured, grabbed that name, and I started the Living to 100 Club. And it's all about, to me, it's all about providing resources. I call it education and inspiration about aging well. So you mentioned I do podcasts. I've got almost 175 podcasts now under my belt, and one a week, and I do enjoy them. I enjoy meeting different guests. I have newsletters that come out once a month. I have just a number of what I call tools to 100 on the website, and people can go there. So I would encourage your listeners to sign up for my podcast. There's a subscription available, and you can get all episodes. There are 2 free episodes a month, but my subscribers now get all episodes every month. And you can download a free copy of my 9 tips for living longer. A lot of other resources there on the website.
Yeah,
So,
and the website is living to100.club.
club, right? And if
Yeah.
you want to subscribe, living to 100 club.supercast.com, living to 100 club.supercast.com.
Okay.
So feel free to sign up on the website for email announcements, and yeah, give
So
me
do
a
you want to
call.
live to 100, Joe?
Yeah. Well, I'm doing a lot. I had one guest on. He said, "Joe, if you don't make it to 100, you should ask for a refund." So
That's
I
good.
just might. Uh, yeah.
But
And,
that,
again, just quickly, the destination of 100 years old is great, but that's uh, what I view it as a mindset, of course, and it's
okay.
what's it going to take me to stay healthy and live longer, and that's the destination I want to create, regardless of our chronological age. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a book called Live Long, Die Short, something like
Uh
that.
huh. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole premise is, live as healthily as possible for as long as possible so that the dying part is short.
hmm That's right.
Not
Live
long-term illness.
long and die quick. I've heard. Yeah.
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 So, you run some groups in the retirement
hmm
communities, and you have some stories that we were talking about when we were doing the
Yeah.
visit last week. So, tell me about some of those stories about some of the people and what you do in those groups to stay engaged.
Yeah. I these are just small discussion groups, and I do them at these retirement communities, and I also do them at Oasis. And Oasis is a learning center. It's national, but I work with the San Diego chapter. And I was doing one group kind of in the middle of the pandemic, and there were about 10, maybe 12 women in the group, and everybody was only women for whatever reason, but they were talking about how lonely they felt during this pandemic and having to quarantine and isolate and all that. And everybody, one, two, the next, and everyone basically resonated with that same theme. So one of the persons attending said, "Why don't we? I'm going to pass around a piece of paper, and if you want, put your name and phone number down, and we can, share that." So that's what they did. They passed it around. Everybody signed it and put their phone numbers there. And I went and got copies in the office, and I gave everyone a copy. So that's what, to me, that kind of spontaneity was just a great outcome of that particular group. And I have other people. I mentioned to you, Wendy, this story. A loyal participant in this group I run in La Jolla. And he's 87, I think. And we were just chatting before a group, and he had a smile on his face. And I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Oh, I'm going out to dinner tonight." And I said, "Oh, is your family taking you out to dinner?" Because he's talked about family for holidays. So I thought maybe the family's taking him out. But he said, "No, I'm taking out a lady friend of mine. She's turning 100 years old tomorrow, and I want to take her out. And I'm taking her to my favorite Italian restaurant here in town." And I thought, what a great story. He's up there and she's up there, and he wanted to celebrate with her. So, you know, gold stars to him. Anyway, that,
There you go.
just I think people are really wanting to share and talk, and some of these they have great activities in these homes. I have to say, I mean, really great programs in these retirement communities. But at the same time, they don't get a lot of chance to kind of talk about personal stuff, and not that heavy, but just some personal concerns or worries or what their goals are. At the end of December, I asked them in the past year, what are you most proud of, and what makes you feel good? Because I think it's important to acknowledge things that we're doing right. So one woman said, I've had this problem drinking, and I found that I was drinking too much, so I stopped drinking last year. And I was shocked.
Right.
So
How old was she?
she's in her mid to late 80s, and she has a huge, loving, supportive family. And she said, I think I was becoming a little tipsy at these family gatherings, so she gave up drinking. Anyway, I like to do questions like that so people can actually pat themselves on the back and say,
Right,
this is
right.
what I've done that I'm really proud of. And yeah, we can talk about negatives, and that's the beauty of journaling. I think, journaling focuses sometimes on writing down the frustrations or, the bad events. I talk about journaling. Let's write down what I did today that was better than what I used to do, or let's write down something that was different when I talked to this person compared to last week, or anything that shows some progress that kind of we want to make note of. So that's
Yeah,
what journaling is good for to me.
I like that. I
Yeah,
like that because I've used it both ways.
yeah.
When I'm going through a hard time, I can kind of get my thoughts sorted out when I journal.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but I've tried, I've started a practice where I will write what I'm grateful for,
Hmm.
at least three things every night.
Yeah,
I have the notepad by my bed so I don't forget.
yeah.
um, and sometimes it's like stupid stuff. I'm grateful for my cat and she's so warm and fluffy, right? And sometimes it's grateful for my health, or grateful that my mom is still with us, or grateful for Hey Boomer and all these beautiful people that are watching the show. And
Hmm.
so I think that's important because I know for myself, and I'm going to ask you this too, there was a time in my life when everything seemed just to become crashing down, and it was hard for me to even think about anything I was grateful for.
Hmm.
So that was a good practice for me. So I'm wondering
Sure.
for you if I mean, I'm sure there's times, everybody has them, right?
Yeah.
When life gets hard. So what do you do to try and take control of that and make it positive, or
Hmm.
find that gratitude?
Yeah, that's a great point about being aware of what's going right. You know, I when I think about this, I think of depression, and I'm not saying that people are depressed when they go through hard times, but sometimes what depression does is it really narrows our perspective, right? I
Mm.
mean, it does a lot of things to us. It changes our mood, our outlook, our sleep, our appetite. But one thing that depression does very well is it really narrows our perspective. So all we see is what's wrong, everything that's heavy, everything that's dark, everything that's weighing us down. And it's almost like wearing blinkers. Horses are fitted with blinkers so they're not distracted by what's going on around them. And when we're wearing blinkers, we don't see the whole picture. We don't see the positives. So to me, let's when we're feeling that heavy weight of everything that's going wrong, let's take those blinkers off and say, look, there are some good things. I tell the story about a nursing home patient, and she was totally negative all the time. Nobody could do anything right. The administrator, the nurses weren't any good, the food was terrible, the other residents didn't like her. Everything was this long litany of complaints. And one week I went in to see her, and I said, Harriet, tell me, is there one thing that happened that was good to you this week? Anything that was positive? And she said, well, the man who came in to fix my air conditioner yesterday was very nice. He smiled at me and said good morning. And I said, aha, there's the exception. And once we have one exception, we know we can find others. So it's breaking through that kind of tunnel vision that let's not dwell on all the losses. Let's recognize there's some good things too. So that to me is, yeah, we're always going to have those tough times, and we do. Financial problems, physical problems, maybe family, and it seems like everything is going wrong, but there are still some good things, some positives, and we always have that. That's the beauty
Yeah.
of this. We always have that spirit inside of us, and nobody can take that away from us. That's my thing. We always have that flame or grit or fire, whatever we want to call it, resilience maybe, but it's always ours, and nobody can take it. Not our family, not our adult children, not our doctors, not nobody. This is ours. This is my drive. This is my spirit, my fire that I have forever. As long as I'm taking a breath, this is mine. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. My fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, my spirit. And I think that's really good advice that if things seem dark, try to find that one thing,
Yeah.
that flame is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So, Joe, I always like to ask my guest at the end of the show if there's a couple of takeaways that they'd like to leave with us. So, thinking about all that we've talked about,
Hmm.
one or two takeaways that you'd like to leave with the Hey Boomer
Hmm.
audience today.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the big one is being ready to start new chapters. Yeah, I've worked 40 years as a lawyer or as an accountant or, whatever. And I don't have to let yesterday define who I am today. So let's leave the past behind. Great memories, great experiences, but let's not let yesterday define who we are today and tomorrow. So, that's to me the beauty of, being open. We can write whatever script we want, we can write whatever character we want for our future. And that's the real upside here. That's where our fresh kind of brighter side can kind of surface. So that's number one with those. Be ready to start new chapters. And again, the second one is to don't look for what's wrong. We're always going to find what's wrong. Let's look for what's right. Let's look for some of the positives that are there. There's a motivational speaker by the name of Dan Sullivan, and he has a line, my favorite. He says, our future should be bigger than our past. So, I mean, that's, a lot of people would not agree with that. They kind of have great memories and they don't see much in the years ahead. But to me, our future should be bigger than our past. Let's be open and let's look for the positives. And don't wait for it to come knocking on our door. That's the other piece. We have to go after it. We have to go after it. And we have to become the change that we want to be. Don't wait for somebody to come knock on our doors or send us an email or, you know, maybe make that phone call. We have to initiate that ourselves.
Yeah, those are great, great
Yeah.
takeaways. Thank you. And I
Yeah.
think I totally agree with you on all of that. So lots and lots of comments today. I
Mm.
love seeing all of that. Kathy is reminding everybody that we're doing a boomer banter tomorrow night,
Huh.
where I'm inviting people to join us, and we have some conversation starters planned, and
Oh
we're going
wow.
to
Yeah.
build community. Yeah, so it's going to be fun. So if you're interested in that, Kathy has put the link to that in the chat. It's to buymeacoffee.com, where you sign up for a membership for that. So that should be a lot of fun. Um,
Sounds like fun.
let Yeah, I'm excited about that. So let me show people they can reach you. They can email you
Mhm.
directly. Thank you for sharing your email address to jc@living2100.club.
Right.
And
Um,
you can find his website at living2100, the number 100.club. So living2to100.club. And you'll find the podcast there. You'll find resources there, a ton of stuff there. So thank you for that, Joe. Let's see. On the Hey Boomer homepage, I have a vitality assessment there that will give you some insights into, like Joe said, is your cup half full or half empty? And it gives you a insight into where you are today. And it may be that you're at exactly where you want to be, but it also may be that you're at a place where you need a little extra
mm,
boost. And so getting the vitality assessment can give you that extra boost, or give you some ideas on how you might want to proceed to get there. So that's on heyboomer.biz. And then if you will support our sponsor, Road Scholar, so that's road, ROAD scholar.org/heyboomer. I always appreciate when we support the sponsor. And don't forget about the trip. And next week, okay, so here's the deal for next week. Next week, I'm going to be at a daughter's wedding, who is one of my dear friend's daughters, and that's in New Jersey. So I will be doing a show on the road. And what I'm going to do is, a lot of people have asked me about the word of the year, and a lot of people have created their words already, but there's some methodology behind it that people say, well, how do you do it? I come up with all these words and I can't figure out
mm,
what's the right word for me, and why is that better than a New Year's resolution. So I'm going to do a show on that from the hotel in New Jersey. So I hope you'll join me for that. It should be fun and interesting, and hopefully interactive.
mm.
And I always like to leave you with the belief that you can live with relevance, live with courage, and live with passion. And remember that you are never too old to set a new goal or dream a new dream. My name is Wendy Green, and this has been Hey Boomer.